right, ladies and gentlemen, how you doing out there in YouTube land? Check it out. Real quick video. I'm going to do my best to make my videos more structured and on point and get right to the point. So I heard about this November 4th nationwide, planet-wide protest on the behalf of Antifa. If you're watching this video, you know who they are. I don't have to explain it. You wouldn't have landed here unless you were looking for this information. And so I learned about this tonight, and it makes sense. It's on the eve of the election where Donald Trump legitimately won the presidency of the United States, yada, yada, yada. And I went over to the site, refusefascism.org. And I wanted to go ahead and just read simply through basically the list of complaints that are pseudo demands somehow, even though this is actually a pathetic attempt on their part. They're petering out, they're running out of anything substantial to go after Trump on. I've seen Antifa posters saying that Russia elected Trump, and of course that's all falling apart. It's a total lie. So they're really just kind of running out of things to do. And then there's a speculation there's going to be civil unrest. There probably will be. But civil war, anything major across the country or world, no. It's going to end in a whimper. So I wanted to go ahead and read this real quick. And I will put this link in the description. No. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. And it would have been so much better with Hillary Clinton in there. We'd all be radioactive ash by now. On November 4th, 2017, take to the streets and public squares. Yeah, public squares are real common these days. We're all living in the colonial times, right? In cities and towns across the country, continuing day after day and night after night, not stopping until our demand is met. The definition of terrorism is the threat of force of violence or the use of violence to gain a political means or end. So they will not stop until their demands are met. And of course, we know that they have no ability to impeach the sitting commander-in-chief. But never mind all that rational thinking and constitutional government stuff. We can just skip that and get right to Antifa. This nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept fascism in America. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept fascism in America. And then you kind of have this bullet point, and like I said, you can just scroll down and check this out. And I don't know if this is supposed to be some kind of internet spoof site. I just don't understand it. I mean, I know that these people are dangerous and all that, but a nightmare. Immigrants living in terror. Their next step could mean detention, deportation, being torn from children and loved ones. They always pull on the heartstrings. They don't actually go after the fact that they don't use the terminology illegal aliens, criminal aliens. And they always go for the heartstrings with children being torn away from their parents. It's like number one. It's number one on the list, right? There's no rational debate there. There's no pointing out that maybe these people shouldn't have come into the country knowing full well that one day their comeuppance may have happened and that they may have intentionally had children only to gain citizenship for themselves and chain migration for their families elsewhere. Never mind all that. A nightmare. Muslims and refugees demonized, banned, and cast out. Now, the second complaint or demand, whatever that is, actually bleeds into the first, because a refugee status, or someone requesting refugee status, goes back into the illegal immigration influx. So when they use these very vague terms, you don't really have to use your imagination, but it's wordplay, right? And of course, most Muslims probably don't give a fuck about Antifa or anything like that. There's probably a small contingent there. So they're still pointing out the completely constitutional travel ban based on potential national security threats from Muslim countries. There's not one to Indonesia, which has the highest Muslim concentration per capita in the entire world. Never mind all that. Right in time for Halloween, right? Here we go again. A nightmare. Millions. Children and elderly, the disabled, the sick, the poor, denied health care, food assistance, their very right to live. Now you can go ahead and play with that if you want. All right? I'm not gonna go any further into that. A nightmare. Women objectified, degraded, and denied the basic right to control their own reproduction. Right? Okay, fair enough. With fundamentalist Christian fascism increasingly being made law. Now, this actually may be true to a certain extent. Don't turn off the channel. That's not what I mean. I'm saying that there may be a little sliver, a little modicum of rationality, because in certain states, I am barely pro-choice, just barely. Late-term abortion, murder. So when I see this type of terminology, and I understand that certain states are banning, abortion outright and that kind of thing, vote with your feet, you can jump into that gamut if you like. So there may be a little bit of logic there based on their unified, apparently, there's a website backing it, conceptualization of it. So you go ahead and check that out yourself. A nightmare. LGBTQ people stigmatized, ostracized, and denied civil rights recently won. Now, there's been speculation that the Supreme Court ruling that gay marriage is legal and constitutional will be revisited in the future. And that, I don't think that's ever even going to happen anyway. So a red herring, honestly, who gives a shit? A nightmare. Black and Latino people openly threatened by the president with maximum sentencing, stop and frisk going national, intensified police brutality. I don't remember the president ever threatening intensified police brutality, and the murder of our youth with no holds barred. So I'm going to rephrase this particular line item, if you will, because of this is how ridiculous it gets. A nightmare. Black and Latino people openly threatened by the president with maximum sentencing, stop and frisk going national, intensified police brutality, and murder of our youth with no holds barred. Now, Trump is from New York. He's a very successful businessman in his own right, regardless of what kind of start he had. But I don't think I've ever heard him say or threaten to murder our youth with no holds barred. I mean, that sounds like something a demented Hulk Hogan might say, but that's a whole different subject. I got to be honest with you. This shit is hilarious. Moving on. A nightmare. People all over the world facing bombings, occupations, war, and the threat of nuclear war with Donald Trump's American first finger on the nuclear trigger. So there was no war during the Obama administration. The Obama administration didn't bomb 9 countries and utilize the CIA to start the civil war in Syria, which is responsible for the death of hundreds of thousands of people no one even knows, and the immigration influx into Europe, right? Immigration, it's not illegal because they allowed it to happen. And then the murders of those individuals and the terror attacks that followed that. So that all happened when Trump got in there. And every president since the invent of nuclear weapons has had their finger on the fucking trigger. So it's all Trump's fault once again. A nightmare. The truth bludgeoned. Lies and more lies. Critical thinking being destroyed in education and public discourse. Well, this is why most US-based universities are basically petri dishes for the creation of socialist yeast of the future. So they got it right. They're just looking in the wrong direction. A nightmare. The whole planet in peril from a regime that denies global warming and shreds of all environmental protections. A nightmare. Step-by-step discarding basic democratic rights, even though they do so by not acknowledging his legitimacy of president, which was, I believe, the basically letterhead of this website. targeting group after group. Antifa, the same group, loosely based group that goes in actually physically assaults Trump supporters at their meetings, and suppressing dissent and resistance. The aforementioned applies here. A regime unleashing the violence of white supremacists, anti-Semites, and fascist thugs. This is fascism, a qualitative change in how government, or excuse me, how society is governed. History has shown that fascism must be stopped before it becomes too late. Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, a couple days after November 4th, 2017, fascism will take a little breather, right? You all remember Occupy Wall Street, right? No. So a bunch of losers continue losing. They're a gold mine. I'm telling you, they're a fucking gold mine. So I had to see this. I read this. I just, it's hard to believe. Some people actually believe their own crap. So we'll go ahead and see what happens. Portland, Seattle, Frisco, Berkeley, whatever. Some left coast cities, and Chicago, whatever. There will be protests. This will turn into nothing. Demands will not be met. You will make yourselves look like fools, as you continuously do. And then when their festooned black garb is taken off, they're a bunch of scroungy looking white people. It's just bizarre. It's really strange. We know about the Soros connection. We know the propensity towards violence. We know there's a racial component on the other side of it, not from the white supremacists. Not that they're wonderful people either. Come on, look at them. You're joking, right? So there's also the racist component. You got ISIS marching. You got people with ISIS flags marching with Antifa. Pro-women, pro-women's rights, total subjugation of women. You can't win that fucking argument. The two concepts are diametrically opposed to one another. And yet somehow they're able to cobble this together. It's very strange. So I just wanted to make a real quick video about it. And tell me what you think. What's going to happen on November 4th, 2017? Jack shit.